building financial trust. In this pen to paper segment, we are going to give you a practical challenge or reflection to help you write your own lasting marriage story. Have you and your partner had the money talk? Have you bared your financial souls to each other and started down the path of creating a shared vision for your financial future? If not, what's stopping you? Is it too early? Are you holding something back? Are you afraid of what you'll discover? Are you scared of being judged? I would say all of those are probably the answers of yes, why I have not had my money talk. Having the money talk can be difficult, but for long-lasting love, it's a must. So let's really dig into how do you go about having the money talk. When do you know it's the right time to talk? How do you set the scene for it? What might those conversations look like? When do you think it's right to have the money talk? And is it just once?
Those are two big questions. Definitely not on a first date. To me, logically, when there is about to be a transition in your relationship, maybe you're talking about moving in together, or maybe you're talking about getting engaged. Those are really good times and kind of necessary times to bring up that talk if you haven't done it already. But I don't think it's in your first 2 or 3 dates. It would be uncomfortable, I think.
Yeah, it's funny. We talk about what sounds just like a comical, who would do that? I think people do that. I think there is a mindset among some people. We use the term healthy or unhealthy on these. I think it was probably an unhealthy mindset that you got to be transparent from the start. No, we are total individuals and you have no right to know how I do any of these things early on in relationships. But there are probably some points where as the relationship, and I think moving in is a great time. What are some topics you might talk about when you're considering moving in? Well, what would be the depth of a financial talk at that point?
You have to know how much they make in a given month. It will determine what place you're going to get together, right? You would have to know that.
Or at least know how much they can afford. I might not need to know how much you make. I might need to know how much can you or are you looking to spend on rent?
Oh, I like that better. That is a very good point, because just because you're moving in together doesn't mean that you're moving on to engagement and marriage. And do they need to know everything? That's a very good way to put it.
Can you afford your rent?
Can you afford it? I think that's important. And because the next one I was going to say after how much do you bring in was how much is going out, how much debt. But by your question, it's more concise. You're asking them how much can you afford, and that would involve both those things: how much you make and how much is going out.
Yep, I think that's a reasonable level of detail to have with someone you're considering moving in with. I think at this point, I would probably want to know how much do you eat out, how much do you cook at home, how much do you spend on some of these extra sort of things, because those are important to how you run your household. Mm-hmm. Is the expectation that we're going to eat out 5 days a week? Maybe I don't do that. I'm a cooker and I prepare my own meals, but you don't. Those are some of the things you might start talking about money. And I would call these, what are your money habits? So part of it is, what can you afford? What do you spend? But I think this would be a relevant time to say, what are your habits? What do you like to spend money on? Where does your money go? Maybe not how much do you spend and what your proportions are, your percentages are, but what do you spend your money on? I think that would be a good thing. Another milestone where you would go deeper is engagement. Mm-hmm. Right? Once you're engaged, that money talk should go deeper. How much debt do you have?
Correct.
What are your views on debt? Are you working to get out of it? Might be a right time of how much do you earn? Because these start setting some visions for where we might be going. Are you comfortable with what you're making, or are you aspiring to make more? And if you're aspiring to make more, are there actions that align with that aspiration, or you just want to make more? Because who doesn't want to make more money? But are you actively doing something? Are you going to school? Are you getting education? Are you working a job ladder in your organization? What are you doing? What other things might you talk about in engagement time around finances?
I think you could start talking about the long-term goals. Do you want to own a house? Do you want that dog? Do you want children? It gives you an idea of how much money it takes. How much are you going? If you decide you don't want kids, which is not as unusual as it used to be, you might not have to make as much. And so knowing those things, what are your goals? Are they shared goals?
What's your lifestyle vision?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Are you a minimalist and want to travel and backpack through Europe for a year? Or are you ready to build a house and really tuck in on that sort of stuff? I think that's, yeah, perfectly reasonable. And then from our standpoint, before you get married, it has to be 100% transparent. So you might go through that engagement phase, but harkening back to the opening, if finances and financial stress is one of the leading causes of relationship breakups and divorce, the more transparent, the more clear you are. And that's where you would start to really dig in on the how are we going to execute this going forward? We're huge believers in budgeting, not because budgeting controls our spending, but it actually takes a lot of stress out of our spending. Once we know what the buckets are, I'm a detail person. It frees me up to not worry about the minutia in a bucket, and it frees you up to have the flexibility to spend in a bucket without the pressure of wanting the minutia in there. For us, budgeting has been a really important part of what we do. When you transition from being before you transition, but as in preparation to transition to married life, you need to really check how are we going to manage our money? Are we 100% together, or are we doing proportionals, or what are we doing? What does that look like? Don't get into it and try to figure it out. Figure it out ahead of time.
Yeah. Nobody needs that stress that early in a marriage.
There will be plenty of other stresses.
Correct. So if you do it in advance, or as you should, it's already taken care of. Kind of like you were talking about, you don't have to worry about it. It's already taken care of. We've discussed prior to saying I do that these are our goals and this is what we are going to do. There's enough other stressful things about getting married. You shouldn't have to think about that.
Well, let's close this pen to paper with two very specific points on this. How do you set the stage, and what might it sound like to have some of those conversations? We talked about the decision to move in together. How would you suggest someone go? Let's say I want to have that conversation. How would I go to my partner to start that conversation? What sets that up for success?
I think going to them and saying, hey, we're thinking about moving in together. I think that puts us at a spot where we should probably talk about money. I've given this a lot of thought, but I don't know how much you have. Let's set a day and time. We don't have to do that now. If you haven't thought about it, not a big deal. Let's schedule something sometime soon that we can talk about. And I think it'd be good to come with numbers.
So don't attack. Don't do it in the moment. You might have been thinking on it for a very long time. They might not be. Setting the stage for a good conversation is letting them know, hey, I want to have this conversation. We're at a point where it makes sense to me. I hope it makes sense to you. And then setting some dedicated time to have that first conversation, and knowing that that first conversation is probably the first of several, right? But then I think I like that point of being tangible. Bring some numbers to this. Think about it a little bit. Reflective. Going into the engagement type discussions, that's where you really might want to do that same sort of approach. Hopefully it's not your first time talking about money by this point. Hopefully it's the second, third, fourth, where you're really digging into it. And I think that's where you say, hey, bring the receipts. Like, let's start looking at stuff. Let's put it on the table, and let's start building that trust and transparency. And the trust comes from the transparency. It doesn't come from you telling me. It comes from you showing me. So bring your statements, show the money, open up there. And if you're not truthful in those points, I think that tells you you're not ready for those next steps. If they're not truthful in those points, that tells you they're not ready for those next steps, which brings me to my final thing I want to talk about, which is how do you manage red flags that come up during this?
They have to be addressed. If somebody is hesitant to bring their numbers to the table, that's a red flag. And you have to say, hey, I'm noticing some hesitancy here. What's that about? That we can't do that.
Is that the shame? Is that the embarrassment? Is that the hiding? And you have to get to the bottom root cause of those. So a red flag might not stop everything, but it sure should stop your process enough until you figure out what is that flag. Because if you know in your relationship that you've discovered there are earning inequities, or there's educational background inequities, or there's proficiency inequities, you have an unhealthy relationship with numbers, this is an area of stress for you. It might be coming from a position of embarrassment because I don't know what my finances look like. Or it might become from an area of I want to hide this and not show it. And those are two very different things. And if it comes from a lack of skill and knowledge and comfort, fine, you can get through that. But if it comes from hiding and deception, you need to uncover that.
And I think we need to reclassify. I think that's a yellow flag. I don't think that's a red flag. I think a red flag would be, I'm not showing you my stuff. A red flag would be a refusal. A yellow flag would be the hesitancy, and you have to call on that.
I guess I was viewing it as their hesitancy was I'm not doing it.
Oh.
But your point is good. Yeah. Yeah. Yellow is I'm working through these things. Red is I'm not going to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Fair enough. All right. So to close this segment, we asked for your feedback once again. Have you had the money talk? What did your money talk look like? What did it include that we maybe didn't hit in here? Yeah. Share your experience on the money talk. Have you avoided the money talk and are now in a situation where you're kicking yourself and wishing you had had it? Share those experiences too, because we all can learn from those mistakes.